So now we're standing in a field. We are working at the University of Alberta. I am a professor. We've had a number of graduate students work with the program. It's a major focus of the program actually as well. So in the time I've been here, we've had over 30 MSc or PhD students who have graduated and gone on to work in positions like plant breeders at universities in Canada. Plant breeders working for the government of Canada and for private industry, and many who've gone on to work in Alberta. I can't really think of any of ex-students of the graduate student level that don't have a job in agriculture as scientists, whether they're agronomists or plant breeders or whatever. So this particular part of the field is actually a genetics study, but it's interesting, and normally when we have field tours, this is where seed growers like ending up, because this field has 250 wheat varieties that have been developed in Canada over the last 100 years. And in each of these small plots would be a unique variety. This is obviously a semi-dwarf variety, and over somewhere, let's say over there, is a very tall variety. I saw in this field, you'll go all the way back to red Fife and to hard red Calcutta and Marcus wheat, the beginnings of the red wheat industry. You'll see a tall, traditional looking wheat line here that's fallen over. But you'll see that this particular line has a leaf tip necrosis idea that a plant breeder loves, because that's the signification of a gene that confers resistance to rust on it, LR34. And plant breeders are looking for that kind of stuff in the field. But this is a genetic study for a student. This is a genetic study supported by the Alberta Wheat Commission and Saskatchewan Wheat, and also NSERC. Because there's multiple studies, we grow this in many environments. I believe this is about the 8th time we've grown this particular study, because we need more and more phenotypic data in order to relate that to the genotypic data. And what that means is that for each one of the 250 lines in this field, we've actually marked 90,000 genes in each one of those varieties. And then once we've grown them for multiple years, we can say, okay, this plant lodges, this variety lodges, that variety lodges. These varieties, even though they're short, looked like they didn't like the weather. This has a little weak knees here, but not so bad as, say, that variety there, which is taller and falls over. And so what we do is gather up data for many years of testing, because that's how you can get robust data on agronomic performance. And that's why we test in registration trials in many sites. And so this is one site. We also have it growing at the organic land over there, so it has very different weed pressure and competitive pressures on it. And we have 90,000 genes mapped in each variety, and we relate how it performs to the genetics. And we're able to map genes that way, or map what we call QTL, but regions of the genome that contain genes that confer height, resistance, earliness, etc. And so that's what this whole field is here. And to do a study like that takes many locations to get precise data on the phenotypic data and the agronomic data, quality data, disease resistance. We're growing this in an FHB nursery. We've grown it in yellow rust and stem rust nurseries. And we publish papers on where genes are, which informs us in the breeding program later to find out what parent we can cross to that might have resistance to that disease, and what would make a good cross. And so all this genotypic study that a graduate student can do in 2 or 3 years, because this project might go on for 7 years, but they can take the data and write papers within 2 or 3 years, whereas a breeding program takes 15 odd years, and they're never going to be able to breed a crop genotype in the time period that it takes to get a degree. So this field is grown in the organic land. We've also grown it in Lethbridge, in disease nurseries in Creston and Manitoba for FHB, and we're doing it for a sprouting resistance study that's related to the problems we had last year with pre-harvest sprouting. So in association with a professor at the University of Manitoba, we have a new project with the Wheat Commission and Sask Wheat to look at the sprouting tolerance of the different lines and to find genes that are related to that. This is a very in-depth and very robust study that we can do over many years. So that's this entire field going to where those yellow marker sign is, all the way down 500 or 750 plots of this field. And if you consider the fact that each plot roughly costs about $70, that's a fair bit of trialing for one trial out of maybe 10 or 15 that go into a scientific paper on that. And then if you look straight down this tier where these are plots, obviously. Each one of these small areas are unique genotypes, but if we look down that field, you'll see into a field over there where we're growing the breeder seed that will be released at the first stage in the release process of releasing a variety to the farming community. So that is the line that was over in the field that we just talked about, called PT789, that has the gene for SM1. Last year we actually grew 300 rows of it and found out that not all of them had the SM1 gene. So we did gene markers of all that, and then we threw them back into the field here, and you could see how uniform and beautiful that is. That's the development of breeder seed then over in that field to be released if it does get registered. So that's the entire process of the breeding system. We have the breeding that goes on for 8 odd generations. Then we have the testing environments that go on up until the final 3 years of registration trial. And in the 3rd year of registration trial, we've taken a head 3 years ago, put it into 200 or 300 small rows, and then we select out of those to make sure they're all the same, and then we put them in a field of longer rows, and out of that field, they should all be genetically identical and all be able to be harvested for one particular 200 kilogram package to sell to the marketing agency that might purchase the variety to be able to sell it or market it.